Welcome, Mary. We're so glad that you were interested in this position and applied for the position in District 1. We're going to do some quick introductions of the board. We've got 10 questions that we'll ask of you and then give you a chance to ask us questions. And so I'd like to start off actually with our student board member. Sydney, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Sydney Corden. I'm a junior at Prairie High School. I don't know what else to say.
That's good. We're going to make it quick so we give time for Mary. We have a second student board member who's trying to finish work, Adeline Smith, and she will join us as soon as she can. My name is Mark Watrin. I'm the current president of the school board.
Hi, Troy McCoy, Vice President, District 3.
Hi, I'm Rob Henriksen, District 2.
And I'm Jackie Maddox, District 5.
And hi, Mary. I'm Mark Russ. I'm Superintendent.
Got this. Hi, Mary. I'm Denny Waters. I'm the Deputy Superintendent.
Hi, Mary. I'm Shelley Witten. I'm the Assistant Superintendent in Human Resources. Nice to meet you.
Great. Okay. So I think we got through that pretty efficiently. And Mary, any clarifications or anything before we get started with the first question?
No, I think I understand. And yeah, I've been looking at your website and trying to get familiar with your faces. So I'll try to remember names and faces.
Great. Same thing. And if you would please, as a owner of a slightly unusual to pronounce last name, would you pronounce your last name for us?
It has 2 syllables. The second I is silent. Snitily.
Okay, great.
It's easier than it looks. Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Question number 1. Please tell us why you decided to apply for this position and what strengths you would bring to the board.
Okay, well, I moved to Battleground 3 years ago, and I have 4 grandchildren in the district. My oldest one has been in the district for 9 years. So I've been watching Battleground School District. I'm very pleased with what I see. And as I moved here, I thought this is a way that I can give back because I have a great deal of experience in education. I've probably attended hundreds of board meetings. And it's a way for me to volunteer my services now that I'm no longer I'm a retired educator. And a way for me to become more involved with the education community in Battleground. Great.
Thank you very much. You just mentioned, but the second question is, and it's a 2-part question. I'll remind you of both parts.
Okay.
What experiences have you had on other boards or in management or other leadership positions? And what are the 3 most important attributes of a school board director to possess?
Okay. Other experience. Well, 21 years of experience in education, and the last 9 years I was assistant superintendent in Prosser School District on the east side of the state. And subsequent to that, I had a consulting business and worked with several school districts. So I think one of the strengths I bring is just an understanding of the system and understanding of what the board's role is. So not understanding that the board's role is setting policy and allocating resources, hiring the superintendent, but also listening to the community. And so I think that's one of the strengths that I bring. I've done hours and hours of classroom walkthroughs, building walkthroughs. I really do understand education from the ground up. But I'd have to say my biggest strength that I bring is I am passionate about, it's about the kids. The role of school board, we really exist to serve students, to educate children. And we have to keep that first in our mind all the time. And I think that it's easy to get off track, but I feel like I have just a honed background in putting kids first. So I guess that would be what I would say about the role of the school board.
Great, thank you very much.
I don't know if I answered the second part of that though. Remind me of the second part.
I counted 3 things in there, but if you want to highlight them again, that's great.
Well, and I guess when I talk about the community a little bit, accountability to the community, and in our role, accountability to the community's children. And obviously that goes through parents, that goes through grandparents, it goes through community members. But I think listening to the community, and I think that advocacy and that transparency that a school board brings to the community.
Great, thank you. All right, so our third question, I'm glad you've been keeping track a little bit of Battleground. What do you feel are two things the district does well and two areas we might improve?
Okay, well, communication is one of your strong points. And I'll use it as an example, the communication from the deputy superintendent about levies and about the levy failure. That's a hard one to write. And it was concise, it was articulate, it was written in layperson's language, because I think a lot of people really don't understand what they're voting for when they vote for or against a levy. So communication is one thing I think you do very well. I'm extremely impressed with your curriculum and how well it's articulated through your teachers. I see a lot of the teacher communication that comes home, because obviously it's shared with me. And I'm very impressed, particularly with your math, the communication around your new math curriculum, because I know what a difficult curriculum that is. I've experienced in that. In terms of shortfalls, well, I think the biggest question I have right now is what happened with the levy. I mean, that I'm sure is one of your biggest concerns right now. And gosh, thinking of a second one, I would have a hard time coming up with a second one. I just, either because I haven't been here long enough or because I just haven't been privy to it, but I have a hard time coming up with another shortfall of the school district, a negative. I've been impressed with the staff, with the communication. I've been at many of your events in schools. I have an experienced eye to look at schools, and when I walk into a school or a classroom, I can read the walls and I can see the culture and I can see what's happening academically, and I'm pleased with that. So,
Great, thank you. Fourth question: what goals would you like the board to set?
I think one of the most difficult things is navigating, as I know everybody has found this year, navigating what comes next. And because this has been probably one of the most difficult years for schools and school districts. And so I guess if there was a goal, I guess it would be a goal of preparedness. And by that, I mean, change is the only thing we can count on. And I don't know how much has been done in that kind of work, but I think there would be a necessity to communicate to the community how we are going to process change as it happens. Because when it's thrown on us this quickly, we have to learn from that. And so I guess one of my goals would be, how are we strategically looking at our future and how we can make education stable for kids? This has been a hard year and not an easy year. And there isn't a school district anywhere, I feel, that was ready for this.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, fifth question. What kind of time commitment can you make to the work of the board, such as additional meetings to engage the community or two-way discussions about issues and time, and to attend conferences, training, and workshops?
Well, like I said, I'm fully retired, and I really have unlimited time. That's I know you would take a note of that. She has unlimited time. I do not have other commitments that would keep me from giving my time to the school board at this point in my life. So enjoying my kids and my retirement, that's pretty much what I am here for. So.
Okay. So our sixth question, tell us about, and you've already done this a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your interactions with the Battleground Public Schools and share with us any perceived or real conflicts of interest.
Well, my interactions with the Battleground Public Schools has really been and it's interesting. This year, I have been had more in-depth interaction with the public school in a way because I've been able to be in classrooms because of Zoom. So when I'm, and I'm sure the teachers know this, but they're on display in everyone's home this year. And that's a very interesting concept when you think about every parent is now listening in on your classes every day. So that's one thing. Previous to that, it has been really attending back to school nights and events and performances. And I've been in every one of your gyms, I think, at basketball games and every one of your soccer fields. So I have had a good look at the facilities. But to say that I have a deep understanding and knowledge of all of your schools, that would be wrong. One of the things I will tell you is that I'm impressed as I helped 2 8th graders look through their forecasting for high school. I am so impressed with the number of pathways you have for graduation. And it's robust for a school district of this size. So those are the things that that I would say I know about Battleground schools.
Great. You want to speak to any perceived or real conflicts of interest?
My daughter-in-law is a substitute teacher for you. That's the only, and I don't think that's a conflict of interest, but other than that, I don't think there's a conflict. No. And I no longer have my consulting business, so that can't be a conflict. That I closed that several years ago.
Okay, thanks for addressing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're up to number 7. Do you believe that once the school board has made a decision, all board members should support the will of the majority, and why or why not?
Well, I think that's the only way a board can truly function. Is it has to, once a decision has been made, I think the board has to support it. If you can't do that, then I don't think that you can function as a board. I think you're a dysfunctional board. And so, yes, I think once the decision's been hammered out, it has, I mean, it's the same with any business. You can't have the management not fully supporting the programs that they're selling. So yeah, we have to work together. It's a team effort. We may take our time. We may have to go through a lot to get to an agreement, but I think once we make an agreement, it has to be for all, and we all have to support it.
Great. Okay, question number 8. Are there particular community connections that you have or constituents that you would represent as a school board member?
Well, that's an interesting question because when I moved here, I was already retired. And I think that in this community, as I've just looked at the community, I think that there are I don't know exactly the percentage of your population that's retired, but I do know that in most communities, that population owns a fair amount of the assessed value in the county or in the district. And I think that impacts levies and bonds, I'll be honest. So that community's connection with the schools in some way is important. If that community perceives that the schools are doing a good job, they're likely to vote for you. And I know you've probably done the vote analysis and you know more about this than I do at this point in terms of Battleground. But I think I do represent that portion of the population. In addition to that, because I have young families here that are close to me, I feel like I have some sway with them as well. And I do get a lot of questions about what do you think about this educationally? And so I guess that would be one of my connections is through my family and their friends. But also I belong to a church and in that context, I have some community connections as well. So only being here 3 years, and I will just put this in there. I haven't gone out and joined a lot of things. And one of the reasons was because I started a 2-year battle with breast cancer the minute we moved here. Then COVID hit. So I've been kind of quarantined for about 3 years. So not as an excuse, but just as it's a little harder to get into a community when everything is locked down. So.
Sure. Thanks for being willing to share that.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 9. And there's kind of 2 parts to this. I'll try to be real clear. So if you are not appointed, do you plan to run for the position in November, which this position is up for? And if you are appointed, do you plan to run for the position in November?
Wow. Tricky question. You know, I think the first part of that, if I'm not appointed, I'm going to assume that you will appoint someone who will run for that position. So I can't really answer that unless I knew, you know, who that person was and knew more about him, and continue to attend board meetings and listen in. Obviously, if I am appointed, I know that's your intent. I think it's a great strategy, by the way. And yes, definitely, I would do that.
Thanks. All right, we're on the 10th question, and then you will get a chance to ask us some questions after that. We're doing good on time so far. So Battleground Public Schools obtains about 14% of its budget from levies. With the recent levy failure, what are your thoughts about moving forward?
And, you know, I've thought a lot about this and very interested in what your analysis has been as a board, because I think that's one of those things when you fail a levy or a bond, you go back to the drawing board and you ask yourself, you know, what could we have done differently? But this is a unique year in that kids haven't been in school. And when kids aren't in school, you don't, for one thing, get a sense of, I think, of how the families are feeling necessarily. It's hard about a levy. And so I think that it's, you know, it's a difficult position to be in. I am not really sure at this point, without having some more information about, you know, what the board's thoughts are, what the district's thoughts are, what steps have been taken so far. I'm not sure what I would do, but I think there's definitely a big community communication piece that has to happen, obviously. But then I also wonder a little bit, Battleground's growing so much. How do we reach those people like me, the people that are moving into all these big new developments? How do we reach those people? And maybe that's the key, is gathering in those that are just moving in. It takes a while. Battleground's an interesting and I would say historical community. I can tell that. Reminds me a little bit of Prosser, where I worked, in that it was a very agricultural community and then grew fast after that for a while. And I think it's hard when you have that kind of growth to keep your finger on the pulse of the community as it changes. So I guess that would be the goal, is to let's get the pulse of the community. Let's find out what they're thinking and answer their questions.
Thank you. Did a great job on those. So your turn. Do you have some questions for us?
Well, I've obviously been doing some research. So, you know, one of the things that comes to mind, and this comes a little bit from the letter from the deputy superintendent about the levies, is your reserve balance and the fact that we probably would have to go into the reserve balance. And so my question is, and I know, you know, I watched your last meeting and I haven't had a chance to be in your meetings long enough to kind of know your budget process. But can you explain a little bit about how you go through your budget process, how the board approaches that?
Mark or Denny, either one of you want to chime in, or you want me to take it?
Well, I think it was more towards the angle of how the board approaches the budget process. So if you want to chime in on that part, the three of us are glad to talk about the budget process as it relates to the in-building, the in-district.
Yeah, great. Well, we get regular updates on the budget, and we forecast that out in advance. We use some of the levy swap process that happened a few years ago when McCleary goes to build up some of that fund balance and really make an effort on facilities. And that was, I think, a key board decision. A few years ago, we just missed passing a bond, and we felt like facilities really needed to be fixed up and move forward so they could last till the next try. That's kind of my start. If you have a more specific question, I'll do the best I can.
No, I think that kind of answers the question. And I just wondered how involved you were in when the budget's being built. Is there community input to that at all? And so I wondered if the board's involved in that. So,
Troy, you wanted to say something, or are you?
Yeah, I wanted to just touch base on the reserve fund. That's a relatively new thing for the board. They didn't have one before. So there is a board policy that we will have a reserve fund for rainy days. So that is built in as board policy. So we build that in the budget. And then obviously we have the annual budget process that every board has as far as taking testimony from the public, doing the board budget, and that's usually split over I don't know, 2 or 3 meetings. In addition, the board does sit on the finance committee. There's 2 members of the board sit on the finance committee that goes over vouchers, meets with the CFO of the district, and looks at the superintendent time card and board budget as far as that goes.
okay, all right. Thank you. Another question, and I know that every district has a strategic plan, and how often do you visit that strategic plan and update it?
Yeah, our strategic plan is a 5-year cycle. We also have some shorter term, some board goals that we do, and they're both due to be renewed. And we really felt like as a board, we wanted to wait until we could do some of that face-to-face time to make that a quality process. And so we are at the end of our 5-year current cycle, and that'll be something we probably tackle this summer.
Okay. Well, those are 2 of my main questions, just those processes, because I feel like the board, those are important processes for the board. I mean, both the financial aspect and then the strategic planning. And so I just had questions about those. I've done some checking and looking at comparison of your district compared to other districts in the state. So my question to you is, do you feel that you are on the trajectory that you want to be on in terms of student achievement?
Want us to answer that, or you want to answer that?
Sure, I'll let you have a first shot at it and see if you're thinking of the same thing.
Yeah, Mary, thanks for the thoughtful questions. Going back to your previous question, though, I do think there is more that we can do to engage the community into the budget process, and I hope that we can explore some of those ideas. As far as student achievement, I oftentimes what people want to do is compare districts in proximity. So oftentimes we are compared to our neighboring districts, and when you compare us to our neighboring districts, our scores are pretty good. However, I think you would agree with me if I were to say that you really need to compare yourself with other districts that have similar attributes in terms of the students. And when we compare ourselves with those school districts, we are not doing as good a job as I think we are capable of doing. Some of that has to do with The facts that we've fallen behind a little bit in curriculum. We're doing a better job in that. We've had several key adoptions, including that math adoption that you represented. And it's hard to stay on track with state standards and improve test scores if your curriculum doesn't align, and we recognize that. We've also focused a lot on quality instruction and a lot on SEL. And I think with the directions that we have considered and are moving in, it certainly puts us in a position to improve our performance. But are we there yet? No, we are not. Do we recognize that we have some work to do? Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. And you're right. I was comparing you not with districts in proximity, but a district that has a similar population and attributes and size. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I would just add, and thanks, Mary. I appreciate those questions Mr. Waters talked about. That we've really only been in about our third year of a district-wide PLC collaboration process. And I think one thing that has helped us this year is to really focus on those important standards, essential standards. And I think when you're having to be, your performance is based around testing, state testing particularly, that's based on standards, to have an overall district focus, which I think we are building towards, and I don't think we're there yet, but to focus on standards, but also on the good teaching practices to get us towards those standards. I think, we're still in that growing phase, and I think, and I really see that will pay off, that district-wide grade level articulated collaboration we'll see some more growth out of that eventually.
Well, I commend you for that work, because yes, I've seen evidence that certainly will pay off. And like I said at the beginning, I have no complaints about Battleground Schools. What I have seen coming home with my grandchildren and what I've seen as I walk through the schools and through the halls, I'm impressed with the work you're doing. So congratulations on that. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Any other board members want to chime in, or? Okay, great. And Mary, I'll just from a board member's perspective, I know this year as we looked at our school improvement plans that were reported, we couldn't rely as much on state test data and things like that because those tests didn't take place. And I think we recognize that there's a real need for a broad range of data so that you get a much more complete picture and not just some of the things that become public. So.
No, and you're right. And it's I think it's frustrating sometimes for the public to be looking at your so-called report card because they don't have a deep understanding of what it's reporting. And there are many pieces of it that are not reported. So no, I think that communication piece is difficult. And I commend you for the work that you're doing to communicate directly with families. I think that's really good.
Okay. Okay, I think we usually give members a chance for any clarifying questions as we go along. Don't know if you've had any in mind. Anybody have any clarifying questions?
Yeah, I wanted to drill in more on question 2. What are the 3 most important attributes for a school director to possess?
Oh, okay. And I think maybe when I heard that question the first time, I was hearing it as school board. So school board member, school board director. Yes. Okay. Well, and again, I'm going to go back to advocacy for children. To me, they are our client. And throughout my education career, that was my #1 passion, is what's best for them, for the student. So advocacy for students, accountability, because the board is the community's really spokesperson in that district. And I feel like accountability back to the community is one of the most important things. And as a board member, I'm accountable to the community to put my time, my effort, my passion into the board. So and then the other thing is transparency. I think that it's important as a board member to be transparent to the community in terms of, I mean, obviously there's a lot that the board has to discuss that isn't discussed outside of an executive session. I understand all of that. But in terms of being able to be transparent to the community and be real to them and put forth the face of the school district in a positive way. So those are the three things I think board members, I guess I'd have to say though, collaboration, being able to work on a team has got to be right up there at the top as well. Kind of a given. I don't think that you'd apply for this position unless that was your goal. So.
Thank you again. Anybody else?
You know, and I'll clarify that a little bit. I have been on a school board before, not a public school board, but a private school board. And so I have been in that position, as well as having been on the other side and being a paid employee of different districts. I've also been a school board member. So kind of understand it from both sides.
Great. Admin team, or even Sydney, anybody? Okay, well, Mary, again, we thank you for showing interest in this. Oh, Danny, do you have something?
No, I was
Oh,
saying,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you again for showing interest in the position and being ready for the interview. It looks like, team, we're going to do a 5-minute break in between interviews. Is that correct?
Mark, do you want to give her kind of a heads up on what this will look like as far as potentially contacting people?
Sure. Mary, you're the first of 4 interviews, so we've got 3 more to do of similar length, and then we'll go into executive session and look at all those qualifications, and then we will come back tonight and probably nominate a person and vote on that. So we hope to have that all happen today.
Okay.
And then we'll contact people.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And
Considering
Mary, just to let you know too, it's a pretty quick turnaround as far as contacting you, because we would like to swear in the new member on Monday.
Oh, okay.
So we are hoping to get the person selected in on Thursday or Friday to get some technology and do a little onboarding and that sort of thing. But yeah, our expectation is to hopefully have the person on board for our Monday board meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for considering me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary.